so much for coming. I know it's crowded today. It's a salon for arts and culture about the Middle East. Our task is to cultivate curiosity around Arab history, Arab culture, and to create a kind of global community that is committed to sharing intellectual thoughts about that topic. And so our values are really curiosity, first and foremost. It's curiosity in topics that are maybe less explored, things that we always thought we wanted to find out about, but just never took the time to. Contribution over consumption, that's very important to us. So everybody here, we're not just listening to a talk. This isn't TED. We're all part of the community, and so we expect people to participate as much as they kind of consume. So whether it's by hosting an Afikra or whether it's by actually giving a talk, please share your curiosity with us.
Inshallah. Kareem. Fabien. Samer. Omar. Omar.
Leah. Sarah. Camila. Tina. Jesse.
Mikey.
Maria.
Daniel.
Bilal.
Noor. Anna.
Eddie.
Everybody can participate on an even footing, whether or not you're speaking Arabic or not. And then it's non-promotional, so everything that people are talking about, they're not talking about their work, they're talking about something that they're curious about. It's Farah. Can everybody raise their hands? Farah, Dina, Tala, who's actually not here. And of course, there's a lot of contributors that are sort of always in the background. Kareem is in the back. Malik is hosting us today.
And his mom is behind him, and that's for our purpose here. I'm a musician. I've started playing the oud when I was 15 years old, and I've been in touch with Arabic music at a very early stage. And there's this one question: what contributes to that difference, and what contributes to the unified term called Arabic music? It's a lot less. Now let's go to Iraq, and this song is Khaif Aleha, sang by Nazim Ghazali.
I'm surprised. نازم غزالي من المغنيين القدماء ما حدا بيسمع له قديم دايخ
He's a musician.
The next piece is from Morocco. It's called Lala Fatima. One of my favorite pieces. And we'll talk why, like they share the same system, you see the intonation, they're playing with the same instruments.
You can hear like a Spanish influence almost.
It makes sense because of the proximity
of Morocco to Spain. Yeah.
What makes Spanish music Spanish music? What makes Chinese music Chinese music? How would you interpret or approach that question?
Instrument.
So instruments is one element. What else?
It's the scale.
The scale, tonal
Chinese scales and Arabic scales.
Very good.
Like I play the oud, and I can play like Coldplay on the oud and play the chords and everything, and make it sound like that. So I feel like an instrument is just way overblown, and it's not really the main factor that defines the music.
Right. So this is my list of what makes any style of music, that particular style of music, in particular Arabic. We have rhythms, we have forms, we have instruments, we have the intonation system where scales go under. We have ornamentation and improvisation. Okay, I'm gonna start with rhythm. So our main rhythmic language. Dom and tak are our main language, like our main vocabulary, the two words we use to express a rhythm in Arabic music. The dom, we could express it clapping palm down. Can we try? And palm up would be tak. Right? So if I say dom tak, you will do dom tak. Fantastic. Now this technique that I just showed you, this is what like Sufi singers in Aleppo, Syria, or in Turkey, etc. They use this to keep up the rhythm, and I will demonstrate later. You need to know three things about rhythm. One, I need to know what's the speed of the pulse. So, for example, I could decide this is my speed, or I could decide this is my speed, right? So that's the first piece of information I need to know. Second piece of information is how long is this cycle? You could tell me, okay, I want 4 of these before the cycle starts again. So I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you tell me 7, I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4,
It's to repeat.
5, 6, 7. Now this is like the repeat.
Repeat.
The third most important piece of information is the character of the rhythm. So where am I going to place the dom and the tak? So if we took the 4 beats, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and I tell you, let's put the doms on 1 and 3. So it would be dom, 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 or right, let's say dom, tak, dom, tak. Dom, tak, dom, tak, dom, tak, dom, tak. And then I could compose at these, or think in terms of a melody according to these cycles. So إذا جارت الوادي طربت وعادني يشبه الأحلام من ذكراكي. Okay, so we know this. Or it could be slower. سلم عليها يا هوى واحكي لها قلبيها. Okay, so that's Maksoum. So the 8, the lower 8 is the speed. Don't mind that. The 10 is the cycle. So I'm counting from 1 to 10, right? And the Samaii rhythm tells you that the doms are on 1 and 6, 7. The taks are on 4 and 8. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. لما بدا يتثنى لما بدا يتثنى أمان 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 حبي جمالك منبع أمان 3, 4, and 6, 7, 8. Yeah, in Sufi washahat they have it.
or قدود حلبية كمان. القدود
القدود الحلبية, yes. They have washahat and like they have 10, 8, 7, 8, 6, 8. They have whole numbers for it. Jurjian rhythm is from Iraq and it's also in 10/8, but it's completely different character. It's like 1 to 3, 1 to 1 to 1 to 3, 1 to 3, 1 to 1 to 1 to 3, dum ta dum ta dum ta dum ta. خايف عليها تم 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 خلفان بيها تم 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 خايف عليها تم 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 خلفان بيها شام ودكة بالحي شلون تنباع أنا اشتريها. Dabkeh, we could dance over a 4/8 like Maksoum. We could dance Dabkeh over, but we have a rhythm called Dabkeh, which is dum 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 tak dum tak dum tak dum 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 tak dum tak dum. الله الله يضرب عنصورة يا مطلعين مسطوح العيد ستي مكون في زورة راحت على العيد والعيد بعيد. الله الله يضرب عنصورة يا مطلعين مسطوح العيد. It matches the dance as well, like it plays on it. Okay. The maqam system is what unifies the Arabic music. So all of what we heard now from like the Arabic music from different styles, what unifies it is the system. However, just like a language and have different accents, the rust in Syria is different than the rust in Egypt. It's like they're a bit higher, the sounds, the intervals and the relationship between the sounds are a little bit different. So instead, let's say sound A and sound B are 0.65, like the distance between them is 0.65. Maybe in Egypt it's 0.68. So, which is very normal. It's like an accent. This is bayati. So why do I need to know about the maqam? Because let's say my brother here is a percussionist. We'll go and sit and tell him, okay, maqam bayati Maksoum, and he will know all. This is all the information he would need for him to start playing, especially in a setting where we really need something very special. Song هو صحيح 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 الهوى غلاب ما عرفش Kulthum song. Sika, one of my favorite scales. It's very weird to tell a Western classical musician about this because never mind. So Hijaz. Is like the equivalent of a minor key in Western classical music. I'm doing this preference just because we have Westerners here, but Western classical music is not always my preference. And Ajam is the equivalent of C major. يا طير يا طاير على طرف الدين لو في تحكي للحبايب شو بدي يا طير يا طير.
I have a question.
So we do like a vibrato. You hear like every singer you have listened to, especially the capable singers, Kulthum, Madi Al-Safi, Abdul Wahab, Ilham al-Madfa'i, etc. If I were to sing something like Yalili, instead of saying it ta ta, you ornament it and becomes ta ta. So that ornamentation is really what distinguishes one music style from another, and inside that music style, what distinguishes Arabic music in Lebanon, Egypt from music in Morocco, where they have more flamenco style.
Or is this the music of the court, let's say,
Well,
of the organized, formal structures found in cities, or is this the music that someone would be playing a cave in?
So intonation
Yemen,
system, it applies to all forms.
Okay.
Yes, now forms, no, is my answer.
Okay.
So like longa or muwashah, people in Yemen don't have to play that. They have their own forms.
Right,
Or,
like a tribe
or
or
they have
something.
just, or just like pop, you know, like Fallahi village kind of style, like ABBA.
Good question. So I don't get this, but it works for me, and I just never thought about it. But since you're a pro, I'll ask. So you know the song that you sang, Lam Lam Na? Okay, so this is Hijaz, right? So sometimes when I'm playing it in Hijaz, I can end it in Bayati. So like Aman, 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 Aman. That's normal. But I can end it like Aman, 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 Aman. that's like a complete skill. I'm going to Bayati, because instead of playing an E, I'm playing an E half flat. So it's like just scientifically, why? So I get the scales work properly, but why can I switch from Hijaz to scale and it sounds alright?
Oh, not specifically about the
Right,
لما
right.
بدأ يتثنى. But when you do modulation, there's a system, and when I'm going to one maqam to another, there are like few sounds or notes in that scale that allows me to go into new directions where I could branch. So, for example, I mean, Hijaz and Bayati are not far from each other. They have the same root, which is D. If you're doing Hijaz on D, or if you're doing Bayati on D. So D is the root, and the dominant is the fourth, which is G. So they share that in common. So it's very easy to modulate between.
One really key person who was not invited or even aware of this meeting is Ali bin Abi Talib, who is the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad. He grew up in the same household as him, and he married his daughter, which made them like very, very close. Plus, they fought a lot of battles together, and he was the first male to convert to Islam. So I mean, they're really, really close, and like you can make the argument that, and half of Islam does make the argument, but you know, Ali also was a very pacifist person, and he valued unity very highly. So when he found out that this happened, he let Abu Bakr kind of run the show and stayed out of it. And you know, he really, like, it was a very kind of recurring theme in his life. He really didn't want to cause any trouble. He wanted to keep the unity. Abu Bakr takes over, and he has to deal with this. This is a bunch of tribal Arabs. Each one of them is kind of their own thing, ruling their own town. Basically, you have to donate to the central ruler of Islam. So it's like, you know, we don't want to pay that tax to the new guy. And that resulted in 1 year of wars. They're called the Ridda Wars, and that is kind of what it took to unite the whole Arabian Peninsula so that they can then move forward.
The Prophet said something that the people afterwards didn't actually follow, and that caused a lot of wars after. He said that there should be a shura council.
Now, Abu Bakr being like this wise old father figure, a lot of people were okay with, you know, him and his wisdom and all of that. But the next guy, Umar, was known as a gambler and a drinker before he converted to Islam. So he didn't have the best reputation, and he was also way taller than everyone else. So Umar made a lot of reforms, and he basically was dealing with kind of a map that looked like this. So they had taken the Arabian Peninsula, they had started to take the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines were now on the defensive, but the Sassanids, or the modern day Persians, were actually fighting back really, really hard. So, he kind of had to deal with that. And he was convinced, and he made the argument that the only way to stop that is to completely invade all of Persia, which is a little radical, but I mean, he was right eventually. But so he was not able to really kind of make that argument because, you know, he had a lot of loyal followers of the Quran. The Quran doesn't imply like, let's go attack Persia. It doesn't really say that. So he added a military dimension to a concept which is like more of a philosophical, abstract concept in the Quran called jihad, known today as holy war. But back then, it was more of like an abstract, like you struggle against your own vices, you struggle against your own weaknesses. It's like a triumph of the self. I mean, it's very abstractly defined. He turns that into like, there's the realm of peace, like God of Islam, and then there's the realm of war, like kind of this like black and white view of the world. We're good, they're bad. We have to go fight them. We have to go invade them. And he kind of just ideologically created this concept that we need to go in and move into these other countries, you know, because that's God's word. A really controversial thing, and it still kind of rings true today. He also made it very, very financially attractive to join that army. So the army, at the time of Umar, when you would invade a country, it was forbidden to take anything from civilians, but you could loot, and you could basically plunder completely the conqueror's treasures, and then they would take all the treasure from the new conqueror. 80% of it would be distributed completely equally across all the soldiers. So there was no distinction between general, you know, you're good at shooting arrows, you're good at riding horses, whatever. They would all get the exact same amount. So if you're, you know, in the Byzantine Empire, and you know the empire is not doing very well. There's no jobs. It sucks. Like, you would probably join this just for economical incentives. And then they also had a social welfare institution called Bayt al-Mal, which had a really elaborate system of donations to, like, you know, orphans, elders. There's a pension plan. So it's like very financially attractive to do that. Plus, like, there's a whole system going on for taking care of like widows and like the weaker people in society. Also, I think this is kind of like a slick Arab maneuvering. where like cities paid taxes proportional to how long it took them to surrender. So if you surrender now, you get basically a good discount on the tax. Versus if you made us like intelligent paid you for 3 months, which is like so much work, then you have to pay for that. So Omar gets assassinated, and there's now another election. And again, Ali's name comes to the table, and they ask them, it comes down to basically one key question. And one is like, if you become the next caliph, will you be guided by the Quran, the Sunnah, and the precedents set by Abu Bakr and Umar? So Ali said yes to the Quran, yes to the Sunnah, but I have my own conscience, and I reserve the right to make judgment calls, like, you know, based on the situation. And Uthman bin Affan, who's the guy running against him, says yes to everything, and that's how he gets elected. He's a good-looking guy. He's married to 2 of the Prophet's daughters. He's super, super rich, and he's the new Khalif. So, like, you would think this guy has it made. His life is amazing, but really, he was actually driven by a huge sense of guilt his whole life. So he like renounced all of his riches. He spent very generously on state institutions, and he spent most of his time praying and reading the Quran. So allowed Muslims to purchase land. So land ownership was not a thing before. Now it is, and he even offered state loans so that people could purchase the land. And so like there was like this huge incentive system to like buy places and make them nicer. His favorite cousin Muawiyah to build the navy. Muawiyah was based out of Damascus, and he's going to be a pretty important character. So remember him as just the favorite cousin of Uthman. So
Which year?
so this is 644 until 656, I think. He ruled for 12 years. So during this time, like this all sounds good, and the economy was doing great. But it was actually, the development was a little bit uneven, because he divided the empire into provinces, and the provinces were divided into districts. I can't remember if it's districts or provinces, whatever. But he was appointing them according to who he trusted. So he would put people that he trusted in the positions of governors. Governor of Damascus is, you know, this guy that I trust. Governor of Alexandria, governor of, you know, Baghdad, whatever. From a family called the Umayyads. And the Umayyads would eventually become this big empire. Like I said, you could get state loans to buy land, and it was a lot easier for the Umayyads, which are his family, to access state loans. So he would favor his own kind, and that led to, and this is very new, I mean, all of Islam is very new here, but like in the first phase of Islam, there really wasn't any of that. There was a big kind of focus on like, this is not about material possessions, this is about kind of, you know, it's a spiritual thing, it's a collective thing, it's a social thing, and now you have all these people who are getting really, really, really rich, really, really, really fast. So this starts to stir some problems. And especially Muawiyah, who was really gaining a lot of power in Syria as well. Uthman, and his name was Abdullah, and he was the ruler of northern Egypt. So and he was just going complete, like he was extorting the locals, just like super corrupt, just a very bad ruler, and the Egyptians had enough. So they assembled a delegation of people to travel to Medina to demand that this guy Abdullah be removed. Because Uthman is known as a very just person, very reasonable person, so maybe we can reason with him. So they travel, they cross the desert, and they start to ask him for that. And then they start going back and forth, and then Uthman says, fine, I'll remove Abdullah as ruler of Egypt, and I'll get you guys a new one. Great, they're happy, they start going, making their way back to Egypt, and they see someone, they're kind of like around Gaza, on their way back, and they see a suspicious looking man. They stop him, and they see like, what's your deal? And he's holding an envelope, and they open the envelope, and they're shocked to see that there's a letter that seemed to be from Uthman that says, when the Egyptian delegation gets back to Egypt, kill every single one. So they lose their mind, and they go back to Medina, and they're like, what the hell? What just happened here? And he swears to God that he's never seen that letter before. Later on, it looks like it seemed that letter was forged by another one of his cousins, one of those rich people who just kind of enjoyed that system because it was making them very rich. And so there was this whole big controversy, and then they were arguing. I mean, imagine a crowd of thousands of very, very angry Arabs in the year 600 something. Like, it's not gonna end with a big hug. So, but like tensions are arising. At some point, somebody shoots an arrow at the Egyptians. They get even more mad. They demand that somebody tries that guy, and then Uthman said, I can't try him because he was defending me. And so he just basically, there's like a lot of commotion. He goes back to his room and he starts praying again. and then the mob just gets more and more angry, and then they storm his room and they beat him to death. He's in Medina for days, and they were just completely ruling the city, looting, plundering, terrible few days. So then they give, kind of that Shura council an ultimatum. You have 1 day to elect somebody, anybody. So finally, Ali gets his chance, and he steps up, and they kind of agree to that. But the person who was not happy about this is the guy I told you to remember, Muawiyah. Muawiyah is based out of Damascus. He's enjoying that system. He's getting really, really rich. He just built the Muslim Navy. He's feeling all, big power trip. And he starts to call, so basically, he is a very, very witty, smart, kind of cunning guy who really knows how to game the system. And he starts making a demand that he knew was impossible. So he demands that Ali avenges the death of Uthman, which is completely an impossible thing to do because it was like 5,000 people who were all dispersed, in the empire by now. And it is impossible to, and it's not even practical to find that person because then what? Then there's just it's like more turmoil. And Ali is a man of peace. And so he basically put Ali in this position where he couldn't really respond to anything. So it's apparently it's like a tactic in politics where you make a very reasonable but impossible request from your opponent, and just so that you can ruin their image. Muawiyah's son Yazid and Ali's son Hussein also become at odds. I won't go into too much detail on that, but it ends with a very famous battle at Karbala, which is what the Shias some Shias commemorate every year for Ashura. Basically, you can see that this is Hussein's camp. He was immensely outnumbered by the forces of Yazid and all the Umayyads, who were using their riches to build that whole big army, turning them against Hussein, who was in this camp with a very small number of people. So they got just completely crushed, and this is still what the Shia today mourn at Ashura. They kind of punish themselves. Some of them inflict wounds on themselves to kind of punish themselves for having left him behind.
And Muawiyah are actually cousins. So Abd Shams is the third grandfather of the Umayyads, and Hashim is the third grandfather of the Prophet Muhammad and Ali. So these guys are cousins. I mean, this is a family feud, and to me it was funny because you can reflect upon today, it's the same thing. Just an internal fight, internal argument. They're related, they're cousins, and they're fighting to try and be the ruler. But it's one family, and I thought that was interesting.
And there's also just a lot of social inequality. Like I said, the Umayyads were just the aristocrats. They had all the riches. It was very, so they didn't even encourage people to convert to Islam. Islam was a status symbol reserved for the Arabs, who kind of have this prestige of being Muslims, and the others are just kind of, different. Eventually, this leads to the complete collapse of the Umayyads when the Abbasids start to gain more power. The Abbasids are the Shiites, and the Umayyads are the Sunnis. So that balance of power shifts, and the Abbasids now rule the whole caliphate. The thing that the Umayyads collapse, and the capital, the center of gravity of the Muslim empire, moves from Damascus to Baghdad. And you can see Baghdad is actually a very carefully planned city. It's made in concentric circles. It's a really early example of urban planning. So it was made to be the new powerhouse of Islam. So so the last Umayyad caliphate is nicknamed Al-Himar, which means the donkey or the idiot. He's the one who lost the Umayyad Empire. So when the Abbasids took over, it's kind of regarded as an Islamic golden age. So they shifted from military conquests to more of science, art, medicine, a lot of the stuff that we kind of are very proud of, the algebra progress, the alchemy, the medicine, the architecture, all of that kind of flourished during this period.
Let's give Karima a hand.
Yeah.